For the survivor who chooses to testify, it is clear. His duty is to bear witness for the dead and for the living. He has no right to deprive future generations of a past that belongs to our collective memory. To forget would be not only dangerous but offensive. To forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time. Elie Wiesel. It has been 75 years since the last concentration camp was liberated. According to The Economist, there are only 400,000 survivors still alive today. One day, there will be no more survivors to tell their stories and to tell the stories of those who perished. Those 6 million people. I am Jewish. I was raised Jewish, and I've always been proud of my heritage. The Holocaust is a large part of my past and my history. My ancestors were killed in those camps. I've visited concentration camps, and I've seen a lot of dark things. I've met some amazing people who survived the Holocaust. I will never forget them. But there is one person who impacted my life in a truly special way. I met Trudy a couple of times, actually. She's so upbeat, and she has the kindest heart. She's hilarious, and she loves to talk. She inspires me every day. I've taken parts of her story off of her website, trudyalbum.com, to share with you. This is her story. I was born on August 18th, 1929 in Samorin, a small town in Slovakia. One day, without any warning, the German soldiers marched us to the center of the train station and shoved us into cattle cars. It was now the start of summer, the end of May, or the early part of June. The cars were very crowded, so some people were able to sit in the cars, but others stood. Of course, families wanted to stay together. There was very little air in the cars. We traveled maybe a day or a day and a half, but it felt like an eternity. We arrived at our destination and the doors opened. We were happy to have a breath of fresh air, but this is the sight that I saw. We marched in front of the officers. With a wand, they motioned people to get into 2 lines. People who looked stronger went on one line, and I was a part of that line. And people who looked weaker and were children or elderly went in the other line. My mother was not that old, only 39, very healthy looking, but she and my sisters were taken to the other line. Looking around, I could see that there were huge chimneys with smokes and flames coming out of them. There was a tremendous stench, and I asked people, what was that odor? And they responded, they're burning your families. Unfortunately, it was true, because my mother and my sisters and all the people who were not put on the line with me to work were taken into the gas chamber and were killed and then burnt in a crematorium. We were taken into a room, and the first thing they did was cut my hair. I had long hair, 2 long braids, and they shaved my hair completely with clippers. They didn't just cut it short, but they had shaved my hair so I was totally bald. Then we had to get undressed. They put us into a room which was about the size of a living room, about 14 by 16. There were spigots on the ceiling, and we were showered, and then we were thrown into a garment. It didn't matter whether it fit or if it didn't fit. You took whatever they gave you. If you were lucky, you also got a bowl, and that was your only possession. No toothbrush, no towel, not a piece of soap, nothing. There were piles of shoes in the corner. We were allowed to go and pick out a pair that were reasonably comfortable, not for our benefit, but because they needed us to march and to work. Then we had to stand in line, and we were tattooed. I had the number A17291. Now we were taken, and we were marched to our barracks. I was in barrack C2 in Birkenau, the women's section of the camp. There was no lighting and no sanitary facilities. We did not have mattresses or pillows or blankets, although some had some straw or something like that covered with burlap, but not all of them. There were 3 people to each of these slots, and there were 3 levels on each block. They woke us up early in the morning, and they gave us some black coffee and a piece of bread. At first, we were wandering around during the day. People were hungry, and a lot of people got sick. You can visualize it now. It was summer, and it was very, very hot outside. We had no head covering at all, and we had very little food. A lot of people did die. Every morning before leaving for work, we were counted, and the Germans kept very good records. If someone did die during the night, They waited until the corpse was taken away. If one of us had fainted, the others tried to take that person outside and make them stand as much as possible so they wouldn't be taken away. Some of the German guards were kind, and as a sign of kindness, they let us speak to each other or sing. We never showed that we were hungry, and we never begged for food. The only way that we had to fight was to show our pride. But some of the soldiers were so cruel. They knew how hungry we were, and when we were working, they would sit right near us eating huge sandwiches. Some of them would bring barrels of water, line us up, and let us dip our bowls into the water. But others would dump water on the ground, laugh, and clap and tell us to get back to work. Now, if a German soldier didn't like the way you looked, he always had a pistol in his boot, and he could shoot you if he wanted to. He might have even been given a reward for killing a Jew. At this time, I was working in an indoor camp, which was a factory in Augsburg, Bavaria, where I was packing nuts and bolts into crates. Early one spring morning in May, instead of being taken to work, we were marched into the train station and shoved into cattle cars. We traveled for a while, and then when the doors opened at the far end of the field, we saw several trucks with red cross markings on them. The Germans began to make announcements with their foghorns, saying, "Get out, we have food and warm clothing for you." Everyone got out, and all while the music began to play. But when the field was filled with people, suddenly the soldiers began firing machine guns. The trucks had been camouflaged for what they intended to do. The Germans wanted to kill every single Jew. Then another German soldier began shouting to us of those who had survived to get back into the cars. Many people had been killed, but the rest of us climbed back into the same cars again, helping those who had been injured as best we could to get them into cars. We kept on traveling. At one point, we stopped and heard a lot of commotion. There was a shooting, and there was airplanes, and people were saying that the war was probably over, but we didn't know for sure. We finally ended up in this little town, and the doors opened to the cars that we were in. People came up to us, speaking a language we didn't understand, and wearing uniforms that were very strange to us. As you can imagine, it took them a long time to convince us that the war was over and we were liberated. This was the American Army. Now the real Red Cross came, along with representatives from HIAS, who gave us some passes to help us move about the country. We were a group of about 15 girls who had stayed together all the time we were there. I didn't care what was happening. I just wanted to get back to my home in Sonoran. We did this by hitchhiking and walking. But sadly, when we got back to the town, we quickly realized that everyone was gone. Of the 260 Jews in my town, only 60 of us had survived. I hope you never forget Trudy's story. I know that I won't. I learned about the Holocaust as a child in my Hebrew school at my temple, and we learned everything. We learned about all the history and everything that happened, but then in public school, we didn't learn enough. In 10th grade, we read Night by Elie Wiesel, and we had a small unit about it, but that was really it. We learned in history classes about the Holocaust from the American side, not the German and Polish side, and not the Jewish side. If we learned more about it in school and educated children, and we taught them what really happened, then they would understand and they would know that this can never happen again. Last year, I went on a 2-week-long trip to Poland and Israel. During that trip in Poland, we visited camps and death sites. Then, on Holocaust Remembrance Day, we marched from Auschwitz to Birkenau, along with thousands of other Jews and non-Jews from countries all around the world. We shared in a once-in-a-lifetime experience when we marched 3 kilometers from Auschwitz to Birkenau, the largest concentration camp complex built by the Nazis during World War II. The march commemorates Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, and after the week in Poland, we traveled to Israel. We visited 3 camps, Auschwitz, Birkenau, and Majdanek. Majdanek is the only camp that is still completely intact and could technically be up and running in 24 hours, which is very scary to think about. The things that I saw there, I'd only imagined when I was hearing stories, and to see them in person changed my life. The reason I went was because I felt a strong need to. I felt like I needed to hear stories and I needed to experience these things. I need to actually witness them. It doesn't feel real until you see it. I will never forget all the things I saw, all the things I experienced. It opened my eyes to new things, made me realize that this was real. I was able to see it for myself. Holocaust survivors are very important people. They must be treated with respect and dignity. Everything they have to say is important, so listen. One day they will no longer be here, and it is our responsibility to make sure that they are not forgotten. People are highly capable of committing the acts that have been done and repeating history. Don't let that happen. Educate yourself and others. Teach children in schools about tragedies. As much as we say never again and never forget, we need to actually follow through with that. Spread awareness about what happened 75 years ago. Do research and listen to stories of survivors. You don't have to be Jewish to know about the Holocaust, and you don't have to be Jewish to care about what happened. Thank you.